Have you ever walked through a garden and wondered how ordinary things, objects left behind, forgotten, or broken, might still hold the power to bloom again? At Teraflora Studio, we believe that every piece of life, no matter how small or worn, carries a story waiting to be retold. This journey is an invitation to see with gentler eyes, to notice how a cracked jar can become a lantern, how a rusted can may rise as a tower of herbs, and how shattered pots can cradle entire worlds of green. Each idea we share is born from the simple practice of looking again, of honoring what already exists and shaping it into something beautiful. Our approach is rooted in the spirit of observe, imitate, and transform. These projects are not about perfection, but about presence, finding calm in the act of creation, joy in the smallest details, and peace in giving new life to what might otherwise be discarded. And before we begin, a gentle reminder. This content has been thoughtfully crafted with the support of AI assistance. It is a collaboration between imagination, technology, and the timeless wisdom of nature. While the ideas are practical and real, the words themselves flow from a digital companion designed to inspire. As you listen, let the rhythm of the stories slow your pace. Picture the colors, the textures, the fragrance of soil and leaf. Perhaps you will feel the urge to try one of these ideas yourself, letting your hands discover the quiet joy of making. If this journey speaks to your heart, we warmly invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to Teraflora Studio and let your own garden become not just a place of growth, but a sanctuary of beauty and renewal. There is a quiet kind of magic in taking what others might throw away and giving it a second life. Imagine a clear glass bottle, once forgotten on a dusty shelf, now cradling a miniature world of wonder. This is the beauty of Bottle Fairy Gardens, a craft where imagination meets nature in the most gentle embrace. To begin, one doesn't need expensive supplies or elaborate skills. All it takes is an empty bottle, a little soil, moss collected from a shaded corner, and tiny plants like succulents or creeping thyme. The bottle becomes a stage, and your hands the storytellers. By adding small details, perhaps a pebble path, a tiny wooden door glued at the bottle's edge, or a handful of colorful stones, you slowly bring to life a hidden realm where fairies might linger at dusk. Crafting in this way feels like weaving together fragments of memory and dream. Each choice is personal. The way a fern bends against the curve of glass, or how a scrap of bark becomes the roof of a cottage. There's no strict rulebook here, only an invitation to play, to notice how even discarded glass can glow anew when filled with green life. When placed in the garden, these fairy bottles catch the morning light like jewels. Dew sparkles on the moss, and the tiny houses seem to whisper to the wind. Children love to peer inside, their eyes wide with curiosity, while adults find themselves smiling, surprised at how a simple object can hold so much charm. For those who wish to try, here is a small tip. Choose hardy plants that thrive with little water. Succulents and moss are perfect companions for glass worlds, as they ask for little yet give so much in return. Add a sprinkle of imagination, perhaps a painted mushroom or a ladder made from twigs, and suddenly the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The most beautiful part of this DIY is not the end product, but the process itself. Sitting quietly with soil-stained fingers, arranging small stones and bits of wood, you discover a rhythm that slows time. It becomes more than decoration. It becomes a practice of gratitude, of noticing beauty where others see none. So the next time you hold an empty bottle, pause before tossing it away. Ask yourself, could this be a doorway into a smaller world? A secret garden in glass? With patience and care, even the most ordinary vessel can bloom into something enchanting. As the sun sets and the garden slips into twilight, something magical happens when forgotten jars begin to glow. What was once just a container for jam or pickles transforms into a lantern that breathes warmth into the night. These jar lanterns carry more than light. They carry stories, memories, and the simple joy of making beauty from what was meant to be discarded. The process is wonderfully accessible. Begin with any glass jar, big or small, smooth or textured. Wash it clean, then let your imagination play. You might paint the glass with soft strokes of translucent color, or press leaves and flowers against its surface to create patterns that dance when the light shines through. Wire wrapped around the rim can form a handle, making it easy to hang the lantern from a tree branch or shepherd's hook. Inside, a candle or a string of fairy lights waits to cast its gentle glow. When dusk arrives, and you see these jars twinkling among the branches or lining a garden path, the transformation feels almost poetic. Each lantern becomes a small universe of light, a reminder that even the humblest of objects can become radiant. Families often gather around them, sipping tea or sharing stories, while children gaze at the soft glow with wonder in their eyes. It is a quiet, communal kind of magic that binds hearts together. A practical tip for anyone eager to try. If using real candles, fill the bottom of the jar with a layer of sand or pebbles to keep the flame steady. For a safer and longer-lasting option, battery-powered fairy lights or LED candles work beautifully, especially when used outdoors. Experiment with color. Some jars left plain create a clear, starry glow, while others painted in blues, ambers, and greens give the garden a rainbow of lantern light. Creating jar lanterns is more than just a DIY project. It is a ritual of slowing down. Each brushstroke, each choice of leaf or pressed flower, is a chance to reflect and savor the moment. And when the lanterns are finally lit, they remind us that beauty often comes from stillness, from noticing what we already hold in our hands. In a world that moves so quickly, a glowing jar in the garden feels like a whisper to pause, breathe, and appreciate the soft miracle of light. In the quiet corners of a garden, where shadows linger and moss clings to the earth, a small doorway can appear, round, wooden, and inviting. It is a hobbit house, built not for grandeur but for wonder, a home for imagination itself. With nothing more than stones gathered from pathways, soil shaped by hand, and scraps of wood, you can bring this whimsical vision into being. The making of a stone hobbit house is as much about the journey as it is about the outcome. Begin with a mound of soil, gently sculpting it into the suggestion of a hillside. Then, with patient hands, press stones into place, each one a building block of a story. Moss becomes the roof, soft and green, as if nature itself has been waiting to lend its hand. A small wooden circle, perhaps cut from a discarded plank, serves as the door. Painted in bright hues of red, green, or blue, it stands proudly as the heart of the home. When the house is finished, it sits quietly in the garden like a secret waiting to be discovered. Children crouch low to peek inside, weaving tales of tiny inhabitants who might step out at dawn. Adults, too, pause longer than they expect, smiling at the thought of a world within a world. The hobbit house becomes more than decoration. It becomes a portal to play, to storytelling, to a gentler way of seeing. A helpful tip: use flat stones for the base, as they give strength and stability. Pebbles can fill the gaps, creating texture and charm. If you wish to go further, add miniature accessories. Tiny ladders made of twigs, lanterns crafted from beads, or little fences from popsicle sticks. Each detail deepens the illusion, making the house feel alive. Building a hobbit house is not about perfection. The walls may lean, the moss may grow uneven, but in those imperfections lies its beauty. It mirrors the garden itself, wild, organic, and full of surprise. As you work, you may notice a change in yourself too. The act of arranging stone and soil slows the mind, anchoring you to the present. It reminds you that joy often comes in miniature, tucked away in corners, waiting for us to kneel down and notice. And when the evening light brushes against its mossy roof, the hobbit house seems to glow with a quiet promise that even the smallest of spaces can hold entire worlds of wonder. Every garden holds a story, and sometimes the path itself becomes the storyteller. A pathway doesn't just guide footsteps. It whispers direction, invites wandering, and turns a simple stroll into a gentle journey. When crafted from forgotten pieces, broken tiles, old wood, leftover stones, or even glass bottles, it carries the added poetry of transformation. What was once waste underfoot now leads you forward with purpose and beauty. The making begins simply, a stretch of soil or grass, cleared to make space for the path. Then, the gathering of materials. Shards of ceramic once part of a kitchen floor, smooth pebbles collected from a riverbank, slices of wood cut from fallen branches. Each fragment carries a past, and together they weave into a new design. Pressed into sand or soil, they form patterns that catch the eye, mosaics of color and texture that no two steps can repeat. As you walk along the finished path, the sensation changes. The crunch of stone, the cool touch of wood, the glint of glass catching sunlight, each step awakens the senses. Guests notice too, pausing to admire the creativity underfoot, perhaps bending down to trace the shape of a tile or the curve of a bottle embedded in the earth. The pathway becomes not just practical but deeply personal, a reflection of the maker's hand and heart. For those eager to create one, a practical tip: lay a base of sand or gravel before arranging your materials. This keeps the path steady through rain and weather. Broken tiles can be arranged like puzzle pieces, forming flowers, stars, or waves. Wood slices should be sealed with natural oil to endure longer outdoors. And if glass bottles are used, bury them neck down so only their round bases gleam, like scattered jewels on the ground. The joy of building such a pathway is not in its perfection but in its play. Children often delight in helping, choosing which piece goes where, their imagination shaping the design as much as adult hands. And with every step taken later, there is a sense of connection to the past life of each object and to the present moment of walking gently upon them. In the end, the pathway tells its quiet tale, that journeys need not be straight nor flawless to be meaningful. They simply need to carry us, step by step, toward beauty. Sometimes the humblest containers carry the greatest promise. An old, rusted tin can, once dismissed as scrap, can rise again, filled with the fragrance of mint, the strength of rosemary, or the sweetness of basil. In the garden, these cans, when stacked into towers, become more than vessels. They become guardians of life, small monuments to resilience and creativity. The process begins simply. Collect tin cans of different sizes, coffee tins, paint cans, even old food cans. Clean them, and with a nail or drill, make holes at the bottom for drainage. Some leave the cans bare, letting their rust and wear tell a story of time. Others choose to paint them with bright strokes of yellow, blue, or green, giving them a second skin of cheerfulness. Then, filled with soil, each can becomes a pot, and when stacked together with care, they form a tower that grows upwards like a living sculpture. Standing in the sunlight, these towers are a delight to the senses. The smell of herbs drifts through the air, mint cool and refreshing, basil warm and spicy, thyme earthy and grounding. A simple touch releases their fragrance, and the tower becomes a vertical garden of taste and memory. Guests admire the ingenuity, children pluck leaves curiously, and meals gather new flavors straight from a creation born of reuse. Practical wisdom makes the project thrive. Always ensure drainage holes to prevent water from pooling and harming roots. Place taller herbs on top where they can reach the sun, while those that enjoy shade find comfort lower down. If space allows, group several towers together, forming a miniature forest of scents and textures. Yet beyond the practicality lies something deeper. There is joy in seeing metal, once marked by rust, paired with tender green leaves that know nothing of decay. It is a lesson whispered in every sprout, that growth can emerge from unlikely places, and renewal waits where patience and imagination meet. Working with these cans slows the heart, softens the gaze. As soil stains the hands and herbs take root, you feel connected not only to the earth but to the quiet cycle of transformation. What was once forgotten becomes a source of nourishment and beauty. And when evening falls, the towers stand tall against the fading light, proof that even the most ordinary objects can bloom into towers of life. There is something mesmerizing about light when it decides to play. A forgotten CD, scratched and dull indoors, suddenly becomes a prism when lifted into the sun. Hung in the garden, it catches every breeze and scatters rainbows across leaves, walls, and faces. What was once clutter in a drawer transforms into a living dance of color and reflection. Making CD and glass spinners is as joyful as it is simple. Start with old discs, music albums from long ago, data CDs that no longer serve a purpose. Clean them, then thread a sturdy string or fishing line through the center. A few beads added here and there bring sparkle and weight, letting the spinner twirl more gracefully. Some leave the CDs bare, letting their natural shine dazzle, while others paint the surfaces in vibrant hues, layering patterns that glow as they spin in the light. For glass spinners, fragments of bottles or jars can be strung together, their irregular edges catching the sun like jewels. When hung from branches, fences, or pergolas, the effect is enchanting. A soft breeze sets them in motion, and suddenly the garden is alive with color. Children chase the rainbows as they flit across the ground, while adults pause, surprised by the unexpected beauty of something so familiar and overlooked. The spinners also carry a practical gift. They deter curious birds from nibbling at plants, a marriage of function and delight. A helpful tip: vary the length of each spinner when hanging them in clusters. This creates layers of movement, like a symphony of light. If using glass pieces, ensure the edges are smoothed or encased safely, so they remain gentle to the touch. Beyond their glow, these spinners invite us to see with new eyes. They remind us that beauty often lies not in newness but in rediscovery. A scratched disc becomes a rainbow maker. A broken shard of glass turns into a sun catcher. The act of crafting them is grounding. Hands threading beads, eyes catching the first shimmer, breath slowing as you watch the spinners twirl endlessly in the breeze. At twilight, when the last light of the sun brushes the garden, the spinners continue their quiet dance. They do not ask for attention, yet they draw it gently, reminding us that even discarded objects can hold the sky's colors if only we let them. There is a quiet satisfaction in taking something worn and weathered, like an old wooden pallet, and turning it into a cradle of life. Once used to carry heavy loads, a pallet can be reborn as a garden bed, filled not with boxes or crates but with soil, roots, and the promise of growth. It is a transformation that speaks softly of resilience, of finding purpose again in unexpected places. The process requires little more than imagination and patience. Begin with a pallet many are discarded, waiting behind shops or warehouses. Clean it, smooth its edges, and decide how it might serve your garden. Some prefer laying it flat, filling its slats with soil and seeds to create neat rows of herbs and greens. Others stand it upright, crafting vertical beds where flowers spill like a cascade of color. In either form, the pallet becomes a frame for abundance, guiding plants upward and outward. As days pass, life begins to take hold. Small seedlings unfurl, their roots gripping the soil nestled within the wooden slats. Soon, the pallet no longer looks like scrap but like sculpture, a living wall of green and bloom. Guests marvel at the ingenuity. Children trace fingers along the rows of plants. And you, the maker, feel the quiet pride of coaxing beauty from the overlooked. Practical wisdom ensures success. Always line the back of the pallet with landscape fabric or cloth to hold the soil securely. Place larger plants at the bottom for stability, and smaller herbs or flowers toward the top. Water slowly, allowing the soil to drink deeply without spilling. And if the pallet is old, consider giving it a coat of natural, non-toxic sealant to help it endure sun and rain. What makes pallet garden beds so captivating is not just their function but their story. They remind us that structure and support need not be new to be valuable. A pallet carries history in its wood, scratches, dents, the faint scent of journeys past. Now, it carries something different, a living promise of meals to be shared, blossoms to be admired, moments of peace nurtured in the garden's embrace. As twilight falls and shadows stretch across the garden, the pallet bed stands sturdy and alive, proof that beauty is not always born new. Sometimes, it emerges when we look again at what is already in our hands, waiting to be filled with life. There is a gentle wonder in seeing empty bottles, once tossed aside without thought, suspended in the garden as tiny homes for life. What was once waste now carries green leaves, with bright blossoms and fragrant herbs. A vertical planter made from plastic bottles is more than a clever design. It is a testament to how imagination can turn clutter into beauty. The making of these planters invites playfulness. Take a bottle, rinse it clean, and with a careful hand, cut an opening along its side. Puncture small drainage holes at the bottom, then thread string or wire through the edges so it may hang securely. Fill it with soil, tuck in seedlings, and watch as the empty vessel takes on new purpose. Some choose to leave the bottles plain, letting their transparency reveal roots and soil, while others paint them in bold colors, transforming each one into a cheerful burst against a garden wall. When arranged in rows, these planters create a living tapestry. Herbs dangle within reach, flowers cascade downward in soft hues, and leafy greens unfurl toward the light. In small spaces, where ground is scarce, vertical planters stretch the garden upward, proving that abundance is not bound by space but by creativity. Children often delight in helping paint the bottles, their bright strokes adding whimsy to the practical design. A small tip ensures their success. Choose lightweight plants such as herbs, lettuce, or trailing flowers, as heavy plants strain the bottles. Water slowly, allowing the soil to absorb without spilling. Arrange the bottles so that water from the top planter drips gently to those below, creating a cascade of nourishment. There is a rhythm to working with these bottles. Cutting, painting, filling with soil. It becomes a meditation, a reminder that hands can coax beauty from the most ordinary objects. And in the evenings, when the sun warms the bottles and the plants shimmer against the backdrop of sky, there is a quiet pride in knowing that what might have been trash now breathes life. The true magic lies not in the finished planter alone, but in what it represents. Resilience, resourcefulness, and the belief that growth can emerge anywhere. Each bottle, once empty, now brims with possibility, just as every overlooked moment holds the chance to bloom anew. Sometimes beauty begins with a fracture. A pot slips, shatters on the ground, and what might seem like loss becomes the beginning of something new. From the broken edges of terracotta, a mosaic garden can emerge, where succulents nestle between shards and tiny landscapes unfold. These creations remind us gently that even in pieces, we can grow whole again. The making is simple, though it feels like crafting a secret world. Start with a pot, whole or broken. If whole, strike it gently to create shards with character, curves and edges that will serve as steps and walls. Place the largest piece as a base, then layer smaller shards to form terraces, like miniature cliffs within the pot. Fill each level with soil and plant succulents of different shapes and colors. Tiny rosettes of echeveria, trailing strings of pearls, or the sturdy green of aloe. Together they weave a living mosaic among the terracotta. As the mosaic grows, details bring it alive. Smooth pebbles can become winding paths, moss can spread like grass, and small figurines, perhaps a fairy, a bench, or a lantern, whisper stories into the design. Children love to add their touch, placing a tiny ladder or scattering glittering stones, while adults marvel at how a broken pot can hold so much charm. Practical care makes the project thrive. Succulents ask for little, just well-drained soil, a place where water flows freely, and sunlight to warm their leaves. The broken edges of terracotta naturally guide drainage, making these mosaics not only beautiful but resilient. Over time, as the succulents grow and spill gently over the edges, the mosaic softens into something timeless. What makes these creations extraordinary is not perfection, but transformation. They carry a lesson that even in brokenness there is potential for new design, new growth. Each crack becomes a contour, each shard a step, and together they build something unexpected and whole. When placed in the garden, these pots draw the eye, inviting closer inspection. Guests lean in, enchanted by the tiny world unfolding within. And you, the maker, feel a quiet joy each time sunlight warms the terracotta and casts shadows across the living mosaic. It is not just a planter, it is a reminder that beauty does not fade when things break. Sometimes, it is only then that it begins to take root. In In the soft mornings of a garden, when the air is cool and the trees are alive with song, a simple gift awaits. An old tin can, reborn as a feeder for feathered guests. What was once forgotten on a shelf or tossed into a bin now swings gently from a branch, carrying seeds and welcome for sparrows, finches, and robins alike. It is a small act of kindness that transforms not only the garden but also the heart. The making is easy, yet it feels like creating a bridge between worlds. Take a tin can, rusted or new, large or small, and clean it well. Paint it in bright colors, letting strokes of yellow, red, or blue bring life to its surface. Punch 2 holes near the rim and thread strong twine or ribbon through, making a loop to hang. Inside, place a handful of seeds, sunflower kernels, or grains. Set a small stick across the opening, a perch for tiny claws to rest while they feast. And with that, the feeder is ready to meet the sky. When hung on a branch, the transformation begins. Birds arrive shyly at first, testing the new gift, their wings fluttering in the morning light. Soon, word spreads among them, and the garden fills with music, chirps, flutters, the rustle of wings. Children watch with delight, learning patience as they wait for a bird to land. Adults sip tea nearby, finding unexpected peace in the company of these fragile visitors. Practical wisdom helps the feeder thrive. Hang it where cats cannot reach, in a spot sheltered from harsh rain. Refresh the seeds often, keeping them dry and clean. And if possible, hang several feeders around, offering food to many and spreading joy across the branches. But perhaps the true beauty of this project lies not in the feeder itself, but in the connection it nurtures. A tin can, once empty and silent, becomes a vessel of generosity. Birds, once distant, draw near, trusting enough to share their songs. And you, the maker, find yourself part of a cycle, giving and receiving, creating and listening. At dusk, when the garden quiets and the feeders sway gently in the fading light, there is comfort in knowing that small acts matter. Even a discarded can, repurposed with care, can hold seeds of kindness, and from those seeds, songs are born. There is a certain charm in sitting upon something you built with your own hands. When scraps of wood, planks once left in corners, beams marked with old nails, are gathered and shaped into garden furniture. They carry not only strength but also story. Each bench, table, or swing becomes a reminder that beauty is not always bought. Often, it is made. The process begins with possibility. A pile of mismatched wood rests at your feet, waiting to be imagined into form. Perhaps a small bench, where you'll later sip morning tea. Or a rustic table, long enough for friends to gather. Even a swing, its frame swaying gently under the canopy of trees. Tools in hand, hammer, nails, sandpaper. You begin the quiet work of joining pieces together, smoothing edges, and giving shape to what once was scattered. Soon, the furniture takes life. The grain of the wood glows under sunlight, every mark and scar telling its history. Add a splash of paint, or leave it natural to weather gracefully in the open air. Cushions or blankets can soften the seats, turning practicality into comfort. When placed in the garden, these creations do not stand as mere objects. They become part of the landscape, as natural as the flowers and trees that surround them. Practical wisdom guides the hands. Always choose solid wood for support. Old pallets, beams, or planks are perfect. Sand carefully to avoid splinters, and seal the surfaces with a natural finish to guard against rain. If building a swing, ensure the frame is sturdy and the rope strong. The effort given now becomes the safety and longevity of the piece. And then comes the moment of use. Friends gather around the table, laughter rising as food is shared. Children climb onto the swing, hair flying with each push. You sit upon the bench at dusk, the air cooling, the garden glowing softly around you. What was once scrapped now holds life, memory, and joy. There is something profoundly grounding in this process. In shaping furniture from discarded wood, you discover a rhythm, a slower, gentler way of living that honors both resourcefulness and creativity. The furniture is not perfect, nor does it need to be. It is real, honest, and wholly yours. As twilight falls, and the wooden pieces catch the last light of day, they seem to hum with quiet pride. Not because they are flawless, but because they were made with care. And that, perhaps, is the truest beauty of all. A tire once carried journeys across miles of road, its tread worn from years of motion. When its usefulness ended, many would see only waste. Yet in the garden, with a splash of paint and a touch of imagination, that same tire becomes a planter, bold, colorful, and full of life. What once rolled through dust now cradles blossoms in sunlight. The making of a recycled tire planter is both simple and playful. Begin by cleaning the tire well, brushing away dirt and dust. Choose paints in bright, cheerful tones, yellows like the sun, blues like the sky, pinks like the blooms they will soon hold. Once dry, the tire transforms instantly, its heavy form softened by color. Filled with soil, it waits like an open palm, ready to welcome seeds and sprouts. Some place their tire planters directly on the ground, a circle of green emerging from within. Others stack them into towers, creating layers where flowers cascade downward. Hung on walls or fences, tires become vertical planters, spilling over with vines and trailing leaves. Each choice is unique, each planter a small act of creativity that lifts the ordinary into the extraordinary. Practical wisdom ensures success. Always drill a few holes at the bottom for drainage, so roots remain healthy. Use lightweight potting soil for easier handling, and consider planting flowers that thrive in shallow beds, petunias, marigolds, or herbs like mint and thyme. A coat of weather-resistant paint will help the colors endure, shining bright against sun and rain. What makes tire planters enchanting is not just their practicality, but the sense of joy they bring. Children delight in painting them, splashing patterns of stars, hearts, or stripes across the rubber. Neighbors smile when they see an old tire reborn in a garden corner, vibrant and alive. And for the maker, there is a quiet pride in knowing that something once deemed useless has been given a second story. At twilight, when the blooms glow softly against painted rims, the tires seem to hum with gratitude. They remind us that renewal is always possible, that what has carried weight in the past can still cradle beauty in the present. A planter made of rubber and soil becomes more than decor. It becomes a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the endless cycles of life. There is something timeless about the sound of water. Its gentle trickle softens the air, turns stillness into serenity, and draws the heart closer to calm. In the garden, a whimsical water feature built from discarded objects carries not only the charm of flowing streams, but also the delight of transformation. An old jug, a weathered bucket, or a forgotten teapot, each becomes a vessel of movement, a channel for nature's music. The making begins with imagination. A clay pot, tilted just so, can pour endlessly into a basin below. A tower of watering cans, connected with hidden tubing, becomes a playful fountain. Stones collected from the garden edge are arranged to shape a small cascade, moss and ferns softening the edges until it looks as if it has always been there. With a small pump hidden inside, water finds its rhythm, flowing in a cycle that never ends. When placed among flowers or tucked in a quiet corner, the feature becomes more than decoration. It draws birds who stop to sip, butterflies who dance on its edges, and visitors who pause longer than they intended, lulled by its sound. Even a modest trickle transforms the air, carrying coolness on warm days and reminding all who listen that life, like water, is meant to flow. Practical care brings the vision alive. Use a waterproof basin or liner to catch the water, and ensure the pump is small but steady. Solar-powered pumps work beautifully, adding sustainability to the charm. Surround the base with smooth stones, moss, or shells to hide the mechanics and create a natural look. Keep the water fresh by cleaning regularly, so it sparkles in the sunlight and remains inviting to both plants and creatures. The beauty of these features lies not in grandeur, but in intimacy. A recycled teapot spilling into a dish feels whimsical, like a secret discovered. A jug pouring into a mossy bowl speaks of quiet abundance. Each piece carries a past life, and together they create a future where sound and sight mingle in harmony. As evening falls, the trickle of water continues, steady and soft. Lanterns glow nearby, the plants lean closer, and the fountain whispers its lullaby to the garden. In those moments, you realize that a water feature does more than decorate. It heals, refreshes, and teaches us to listen again to the small, enduring miracles of nature. And so, we arrive at the gentle end of this journey, where broken things have bloomed again and forgotten objects have found their second story. From bottles that now cradle fairy gardens, to jars glowing with lantern light, to pathways stitched together with fragments of memory, each creation has whispered the same truth. Nothing is ever truly wasted when seen with the eyes of care. At Verdo Studio, our hope is to offer you not only inspiration, but also a sense of calm. These ideas are not just projects for the hands, they are invitations for the heart. A way of slowing down, of listening more closely to the rhythm of soil, water, and air. A reminder that beauty lives in the smallest of details, waiting patiently for us to notice. Perhaps as you listened, you imagined the fragrance of herbs rising from a rusty can, or the shimmer of light dancing off an old CD in the breeze. Perhaps you felt the quiet joy of crafting, or the peace of knowing that creation can begin again, even from what is broken. This, too, is the story of the garden. Renewal, resilience, and the gentle promise that life always finds a way. If these moments have brought you a little warmth, a little wonder, or a spark of curiosity to try something new, we would be honored to continue this path together. Subscribe to Verdo Studio, and let us walk side by side into more worlds of imagination and renewal. May your own garden, no matter how small, become a sanctuary of peace and possibility, where even the simplest of things can shine again with unexpected beauty.